Welcome to a very special episode, our first inaugural episode of the Comic Book Strategic Investment Podcast. I'm here with the godfather of encapsulation, the founder of CBCS, Steve Borock. Steve, will you please introduce yourself to our live audience?
Hi, how's everybody doing? I hope you're doing well out there and staying safe. And it's an honor to be on the show. Thank you.
Steve, for those who are not familiar with what you're doing and how you've developed a career in comics, I'd like to talk a little bit at the onset about how you were integrally involved in those early efforts to start third-party grading. Can you kind of tell people a little bit about your background in comics and how third-party grading began?
Sure. I mean, to make it short and sweet about my history in comics, I've been reading comic books since I can remember. My father was bringing them home for me before I could read, and fell in love with them. Later on in life, I started collecting and reading, of course, and wanted to figure out a way to support my habit, just like everybody else. Set up my first Phil Seuling marketplace. They weren't called conventions; they were called marketplaces, and they were in a small, lousy hotel in New York, in the ballroom. And I was able to afford half a table, and split it with my friend Ricky Feldman, and started buying and selling books. Not making a lot of money, just helping support my habit. I'd make some money and I'd go buy a Taos Spence 57 or something that I needed, that I've never read and thought was really cool. I became one of the top collectors in the world at one point, and
let's give people kind of an idea of what that means. I got a lot of feedback on my end. I apologize for that.
Okay. Being a top collector, I've owned 2 Action 1s in my time. I've owned the Flash one, Edgar Church Mile High copy, the Morphin 52 First Spectre, Edgar Church Mile High copy. At the time when I bought it, it was the most ever cash paid for a comic book, $115,000, a little over 4 times price guide. I was buying and selling comic books at shows, and then around '99, this group came to me because I was recommended by some of the top dealers and some of the top collectors as somebody honest who could grade and who could tell restoration, and they told me they were going to put comic books in plastic, and I said, that doesn't make any sense. It sounds like a scam to me. Then they explained how it worked in cards and coins and how it's helped the market and mostly helped collectors at the end of the day not get ripped off. I've always said that eBay back then was the Wild West. You would get a book that somebody said was a VF or fine or whatever, but it had restoration and they didn't disclose it, or it was missing a centerfold. My friends and I were all getting ripped off. They wouldn't accept returns, or they would argue with you that it's not restored, that kind of thing. I started grading with Christie's and with Sotheby's when they had auctions back in the day. But like I said, I got tapped for our competition to help not only advise on how to open it, but to sell it, which was really tough. I mean, even some of my best friends said, Steve, we'll never use this service. People were raging against it.
What year was this?
That was 99 and 2000. The first certified books went out in January of 2000. And some of the smart people came on board right away. But then it took the Greg Manning auction where prices exploded on certified books. Crazy. Something like Canteen Kate #1, the At Your Church Mile High copy went for something like 18 times guide. It was crazy. Nobody ever expected that. And it just snowballed into almost all the dealers and many high-end collectors saying they only want certified books. It is a double-sided coin, of course, because now that books are being sold in plastic holders, the new generation isn't being brought up the same way that we did on learning how to grade correctly. We didn't have certification. We had to, learn how to detect restoration. We had to learn that you have to count pages, all this stuff. And this is all being done for you already through certification. So I'm not sure how the next generation of collectors are going to be able to buy raw books correctly. But at the same time, it's the best. Basically, I call it the good housekeeping seal of approval when you get a book, that's certified. You know that the pages have been counted. You know it's been checked for restoration. You know that the grading standards are set correctly, using the Overstreet standards and the standards that the highest dealers and the highest collectors use, because we integrated all that into the grading system. But it was a really tough sell, and but once it popped, it really popped, as you know. And we invented things like the Signature Series program and things like that. People want their books signed. When I was growing up, we had them sign the bottom of the first page. So I got Jack Kirby, Stan Lee, people like that to sign the first page, and they weren't charging any money back then. They were just happy.
And I apologize for interrupting. Will you tell people what the impact of a signature on the inside cover is compared to a signature on the cover when you grade books?
Well, I mean, if it's a witnessed signature or if it's a verified signature through BAS, there's no impact on grade. If the signature fails or it's not a witness signature, we downgrade for signatures. Not so much on the first page because it doesn't affect the look of the book, but when you have this gigantic fake Stan Lee signature across Hulk's face on a Hulk 181, you have to downgrade for it. It's a defect, just like if a kid wrote a name on the book.
Now, CBCS is the only major grading company that verifies unwitnessed signatures. Can you talk a little bit about that program?
Well, sure. It's through BAS, Beckett Authenticated Services. They've been doing this for a long time, incredibly respected, incredibly knowledgeable people. They look at the signature and they know the difference between a Jack Kirby from 1940 or 1950, 1960. I can tell the difference if Roz Kirby, who was signing Jack's books at the end, if it was a Roz Kirby signature or a Jack Kirby signature. They're just an amazing group of people. We wouldn't trust them otherwise. They're very well respected, especially in the sports community. They do rock and roll. They do, like I said, sports and comic books. They're just fantastic. It's really taken off, the program. People want their Schomburg signatures or their Kirby signatures and stuff like that done. Those, like I said, a lot of those are on the first page, so you can't see them through the holder. So this whole phenomenon happened where people started signing having them sign the front of the book. And to some old guy like me, I'd rather have it on the first page and not mar the artwork on the front.
If Stephen King was going to sign my novel, I wouldn't ask him to sign the cover.
Right. But people
Call me
want
a traditionalist.
right, but people want to see the signature, and I understand that. It's it's something to show off, right?
Now, do you give people the opportunity to request where they want books signed? I know you guys just finished a round of incredible signature series books that were done in-house by Greg Capullo, Frank Miller. I know I'm missing somebody, Donnie
Oh yeah,
Cates.
yeah. It was so many people, and most people wanted to sign the cover, but what they do is they send it in a mylar with a window cut out for where they want it signed, and so it's pretty cool. They get the signature exactly where they want it, and because it's in the mylar, the creator doesn't have to handle the book and make it a lower grade while signing.
Now, there's so much neat stuff going on at CBCS right now. The main reason that I begged you to come on the podcast with me is so that we could discuss the census that has just been populated by CBCS. Of course, this is a long-awaited reality that collectors have longed for. Can you talk a little bit about that decision to go ahead and publish at this time, and some of the efforts that you guys are making to clean it up and make it as close to perfect as you can?
Sure. I mean, we launched it, yesterday, and there's going to be some problems, but we have a button that says report a problem. So if your book's not on it, you can send us your, the book number. Uh, every book gets its own separate number, and we'll put it on the registry. If there's duplicates, you can report that, because there's, whatever you're dealing with programming, there's always some problems. But people have been clamoring for it, so we decided, let's go for it. It took a long time to do. But also, the reason we didn't want to launch it too early is because it's not fair to show, if we launched it our first year, and let's say we never did an Aquaman 1 in the first year, it wouldn't be fair to say there's no Aquaman 1s on the census. It's so rare, right? It's not that it's rare, it's just that we didn't get any in. So we waited till we had enough books to make the census valuable.
Now, what can people do to try and, other than notify you about perceived errors, what can they do to try and ensure the integrity of the census? I mean, what are some efforts that they can do?
Well, one of the things that most people who care about the hobby and do is if they crack out a book, whether it's to get signed and resubmitted, or if it's to crack it out just to read it. A lot of people use certification. They buy the book, but they crack it out. And we ask them to send in the label with it, so we can take the label and knock it off the census to keep the census as correct as possible. There's always going to be some books that are on the census that have been cracked out, because people won't send the label back in. But at the early days of our competition, we had 594 FF5s, because the guy kept thinking it was a 96, and he kept sending it in, but he wouldn't send the label back. And when he was like, "Oh, you're killing me. Your census is showing that there's 5, but there's only 1." I was like, "That's your fault. You didn't send the labels back." And immediately the labels came back. We knocked the 4 off the census, and there was 1. It's a great tool.
Now, do other encapsulation services, let's say, for example, someone would send a CBCS book to PGX. Does PGX bulk send to CBCS the labels that they procure? Does CGC do that?
CGC and I have an understanding of sending the labels back to each other, to keep both censuses correctly. PGX, I won't deal with. They're not a legitimate certification company. If you want something put in plastic, send it to them. But I've seen too many books that are restored through the holder on PGX. I've cracked out
So,
PGX books where the centerfolds are missing.
yeah, I mean, I don't think that that's any surprise to our listeners, so I won't belabor or a well-established point or beat a dead horse. But I do want to talk about that relationship with CGC, that your reciprocal relationship, because I think that's really important. There were a number of people who expressed to me their concern that there were so many books that were sent from that were initially encapsulated by CBCS to CGC. They had some sort of crossover promotion. All of those labels were returned to you?
Actually, they were returned at the beginning. When we moved, before we moved to from Florida to Texas, we stopped getting labels, so we stopped sending them labels. They've done quite a good job of trying to keep us down, and I wasn't going to help them if they weren't going to help us. I put something on our chat boards about that, and immediately got a call from Matt Nelson at CGC saying, "Hey, we have all the labels. We're going to send them to you." And so I said, "Great, I have all the labels too. I didn't throw them out." It's to help the hobby. It's not for me to help my competition. It's not for my competition to help me. It's to help the hobby.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because I know that's something that's near and dear to both of our hearts, this idea of community and stewardship within the hobby. I mean, we touched a little bit on it earlier when you were talking about the need for older, more experienced collectors to help less experienced collectors learn to grade raw books. I mean, beyond that, I think this is really one of the last apprenticeships around. I mean, it very much is an each one teach one kind of collector community. Talk to me about the involvement that you have with the Hero Initiative, what the Hero Initiative is, and some of the work that you're doing with them.
Well, I'm on the board of Hero Initiative, so I'm on the committee that helps bring in money. So was yesterday or the day before? Days have been flying by because I've been working so hard. I worked all day today up till the podcast. So people paid the Hero Initiative $100 a piece to have basically time with me. We had 5 people who paid $100. It was supposed to be 4, but we oversold it by mistake. And it was supposed to be for 45 minutes. I talked for about an hour and a half with them. They asked questions, and it was really fun. It was a great time. Everybody had a blast. But the Hero Initiative is really important because the money that we raise goes to the creators that are in need. A lot of the creators that are older didn't get, weren't selling their covers for $8,000. They were getting paid piecemeal. They didn't even get some of their artwork returned. They're living hand to mouth, so we help with hospital bills, housing, food, whatever they need, whether it's, taxis back and forth to clinics. It's really important to support these people because they give us so much enjoyment, and there's no reason they should live badly. I'm a big believer in charity. I always said that if I would ever need charity, I'd probably accept it. So why shouldn't I give my time and money to charities that are legitimate? And the Hero Initiative is very legitimate. We only have 2 salaries that we pay, and they're not very high. The employees only got health care a couple of years ago. This was a labor of love for them. And we don't have an office. The office is the diner around the corner where people can sit and talk. We don't waste money. We make sure it goes to where it's supposed to go. There's too many charities where the CEO is making $1 million or $2 million, and $1,000 is being given out from the charity to the people who need it. like the Wounded Warrior Project. That was a scam, you know. Um, but I really believe in helping our hobby. Anybody can go to heroinitiative.org. Even if you donate $1, I mean, if everybody in our hobby donated $1, it would help a lot. But there's plenty of things for sale. Overstreet, out of the kindness of their heart, um, puts out a Hero Initiative cover for the Overstreet, and the Hero Initiative gets to sell that. It's fantastic. I buy that one every year. Um, and But we have people like Roy Thomas and Howard Chaykin, all sorts of great people on the board helping out. And if you go around most conventions, you'll see that somebody has at their table a jar that says Hero Initiative, and they say you want a signature. It's $5 donation to the Hero Initiative, as opposed to them making the money themselves, which is fantastic because a lot of creators charge for signatures, but don't give it to the Hero Initiative. They pocket it. Rightly so. It's their work and it's their name. But
let's talk a little bit about what we discussed privately, that it's hard to make money in comics. I mean, if you were a sequential panel artist or a writer, whether it's for Marvel or DC or an independent, even cover artists, they're not making huge cash. I mean, a lot of these guys really rely upon the hope that they'll get a TV deal or a movie deal.
Absolutely. I was talking with Donnie Cates and Sam De La Rosa at the CBCS Expo that we held, and Sam said he will not do anything but covers right now. Of course, Venom helped him quite a bit financially, and Donnie Cates was saying the same thing, that if you're not being picked up for a TV show or a movie, there's really not a lot of money. It's really a labor of love. Donnie was saying how he gets to pick who he wants to write. So that makes his job so much more pleasurable. But at the same time, without without having the money from the movies or the TV, there's really not a lot of money to be made in it. It's really a labor of love. You have to say, okay, I want a job that pays okay, and I want to work in comic books.
So if right now, if somebody wanted to contribute to the Hero Initiative, they would log on to the Hero Initiative website, and it's as simple as spending a few dollars via PayPal, and they can contribute, right?
Right. They could press a button to donate, or they could buy the swag that we're selling.
And that includes the Overstreet?
Right. That includes the Overstreet price guide. The new one will be out soon, but of course, with everything that's been going on in the country, it's not going to happen as quick as usual. Usually it's published in July and broken out at San Diego. Well, we're not going to have a San Diego this year. There's no social distancing. You can't put 150,000 people together right now. It's a shame, but it's just the reality of life. But they will have a Hero Initiative one. But what's really cool, it's the 50th anniversary of Overstreet this year. It's incredible that Bob has held steady this ship that really helped make pricing and grading guides, but they're guides. Bob will always say it's not a Bible, it's a guide. There's other places.
Let's talk about that. Mm-hmm. You and I discussed earlier today a little bit about the kinds of conversations you have with JC Vaughn and others at Overstreet about the grading criteria.
Yeah, I'm Bob. I'm one of about senior grading advisors.
Yeah, so can you talk about some of those conversations that you have, some of the tweaks that are being made to the Overstreet Price Guide?
Sure. Well, one of the things I'm hoping for is that the look of the book is taken into account, not just the defects. Um, you can't say that a quarter-inch crease isn't allowed in this grade and make it definitive, because if there's a quarter-inch crease on the front cover that breaks color, and there's a quarter-inch crease on the back cover that doesn't break color, and 10 out of 10 people want the one with the crease on the back cover, then the one with the front cover has to be a lower grade. And we're all, it's a visual medium, of course. So it has to be tweaked where it's not just the technical grade, but also the look of the book.
Yeah, now that's something that, again, there are third-party companies that are marketing, much like they did with coins, a second layer of grading where they put these like little stickers on your slabs. That's something that CBCS does already, right?
Right. We don't need to have our customers pay to know that the book looks better in the holder than the given grade. So we put a little check mark next to it, which means check the grader's notes, and you'll see that there's a 3-inch tear on the third page, something you can't see. We thought it was very important to let people know exactly why we came to the grade we came to if it didn't look right to them.
Yeah, now I want to talk about.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, I want to talk about the grader notes. You guys provide them for free, right?
Sure. And not just that, but we have a QR code on the back of the label. So if you're at a convention and you see a book that looks like an 8.0, but we gave it a 6.0, you could put your phone up to it, and have a QR app, and it'll bring you right to the grader's notes. I think it's very helpful. There's people out there that buy books to press and get better grades. Well, this helps them not get caught with the 3-inch tear on the third page. It also gives them an idea of if, this something breaks color and can't be pressed out. It's just another tool to help the community.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of that from CBCS.
We try. I mean, I've been in the hobby since I was a kid. I want it to last forever.
Tell me about the new holders.
Well, they were supposed to launch the beginning of this month, but because of what went on in our country, the printing place that was doing the new labels was closed. They'll be launching fairly soon. Excited about it. The holder is really cool. It breathes, so you're not stuck with the contamination that happens from the off-gassing to your comic book. And the label is going to be tweaked a little.
Can you explain that part to people who aren't familiar with the vernacular?
Oh, okay, sure. So when something's put in an airtight container, paper especially, if it doesn't breathe, it's a tree, right? The paper is made from trees. It has to breathe. It has to have something to it, but you also don't want contaminants to get into it. So our interior well of the holder that actually houses the comic book is made of PETG, which is used by the Smithsonian and Library of Congress. So to help protect the comic book, you don't have to put that microchamber paper in it that has to be changed out every 7 to 9 years. If you don't change out microchamber paper, it's like a sponge. Eventually it gets filled and it doesn't work, and it can hurt your book. It can turn where the microchamber paper is dark, We didn't want to use that. We wanted to use something like the PETG that you didn't need to have the microchamber paper and didn't need to spend money every 7 to 9 years reholdering your book. Did that help a little?
That helps a lot. Are other encapsulation services doing something comparable?
Well, our competition uses the microchamber paper. It used to say on the back of the label, please change this out every 7 to 9 years, and for some reason they got rid of that. I don't know why. Not very pleased with it as a collector myself. But not collector, hobbyist. I don't collect comic books anymore. It keeps me impartial, and I can not worry about somebody else's book being higher grade than mine, and or conspiracy theories that I won't grade a book higher than the one I have, right? So I gave up comic collecting. I still read. I read trades. I'm a comic book junkie for life. But I don't collect comic books. I collect original comic book art, and I collect memorabilia from our hobby. Marvel Mania, early DC stuff, EC. I have a piece of unused EC stationery that's really cool that you never see unfolded.
Wow.
It's a lot of fun. I love the history of our hobby, and I've learned from the best. You know, whether it's Maggie Thompson or Bob Overstreet, or dealers that have been around forever, like my friend who passed, Jerry Wiest, who started the first Sotheby's comic auctions. And the best thing anybody can do in our hobby is make friends and latch on to the people who are knowledgeable. And they're more than happy to share their knowledge because they care about the hobby and they care about people. There's still people out there who won't use certification because they sell restored books as unrestored. And it's a shame. We want to protect the
How
hobby.
hard is it to spot restoration for somebody who's new to collecting, or at least new to collecting these big dollar books? I mean,
It's
can you
difficult.
talk about that?
Yeah, it's difficult. You need to study the comics. The more comics you see, the more you'll realize that something's strange about that comic book. Something hits your gut and says, this isn't right. Now, there's easy ways too for a novice. If you very lightly run your thumb along the spine of a comic, if you hit something that feels hard, that doesn't make sense. So that's probably glue. If the color touch is not acrylic, it's marker, things like that, it usually bleeds through to the cover, so you can see it from the interior. So check your interiors. If you see spots of color coming through, then something's wrong. The print didn't come through to the interior front cover or interior back cover. So something's wrong. But it took me years and years of studying and going through a lot of books and getting burned as a collector to do it. Trimming is one of the more complicated techniques to check. It's not really restoration, it's more desecration. And there's something called micro trimming, which is the most minute trim, and it's even. I'm not sure how they do it. I never learned how to restore books or trim books, but anybody who can tell you that they can tell micro trimming all the time is a liar or just doesn't understand what they're looking at. And the only way you could tell is if it was already in a holder. You have a before picture and then an after picture. It's still going on today, but not as widespread as it was at one point. But it's really just talking to people. I studied restoration with certain restorers. I paid them, and got a lot of great information from it, especially on how to check a page in your comic that has a piece replaced. It's very hard to find, to detect.
I want to talk a little bit about that because that's fascinating, and I don't know that a lot of people are aware of this, but my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that they're literally pulping comics from the same era of the same page quality, and then crafting pieces so that they're the perfect tone.
It's close to perfect. Some
I'm
people
glad you said that.
it's close to perfect. But it can be detected with enough experience. The problem is that most collectors can't go through enough books to learn this.
Yeah, so what's the process to become a grader at CBCS? I mean, what kind of training do you guys do? And I wouldn't ask you to reveal any sort of proprietary or trade secret information, but if you could talk kind of generally about the process for educating graders at CBCS so that they are the cream of the crop.
Well, I mean, most of the people that we hire, especially for vintage, have already been in the market for a long time.
And by that, you mean decades?
Yeah. And like my second in command, Wes Steffen, has been doing this since he was a kid. He's a pedigree expert. He could actually smell an Edgar Church Mile High book and say, yeah, this is, one of the Mile Highs.
I still can't, my brain still can't fathom something like that. I can barely smell pancakes and tell you that they're pancakes.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many, when I was younger, how many girlfriends looked at me when I smelled a comic book and just like rolled their eyes and thought I was insane. But there's with training, it takes a long time to train somebody before they're, even up to pre-grading. But they sit with myself or West or my modern specialist, Daniel Ertl. He's fantastic. And the more you look at books, and we do, thousands and thousands of books a month. So you get, once again, it was like I was saying how a collector can't look at thousands of books at one time, right? They learn by sitting with us, and we use Overstreet standards as well as the standards that the hobby uses. Like I said, the top dealers and top collectors. You have to be in the strike zone. If somebody sends in a book they think is an 8.0 and they're a good grader, it should at least be a 7.5 or the 8 or an 8.5. You should be in the strike zone because not everybody grades the same way. Certain people dislike stains more than they like creases, or vice versa. Or some people won't buy a book with a staple pop. But you have to figure out the right grade that most of the hobby will accept. The tightest grader is just as bad as the loosest grader because they're grading wrong. You have to, and you can have your own grading standards and your own grading system for yourself for the books you collect, right? Because it doesn't matter. But when you go to sell it, it has to be an industry standard.
A 6 needs to be a 6 to me, to use to everybody else. Some uniform.
Or a 5.5 or a 6.5, where people are comfortable, right, buying that book.
Exactly. We had an interesting question in the live chat that I think I've already asked you, and tragically, I'm going to ask you again, hoping you're going to change your answer. Do you think there'll ever be a time when pulps are graded by third-party grading companies, CBCS?
Well,
specifically?
not by us. It would cost so much money to grade a pulp because the page count takes so long. And also there's a problem. A lot of the books, the pulps, have overhangs, really heavy overhangs. And if you're going to put them in a holder, if the holder gets moved around or dropped, it could actually lower the grade because of the overhang. And then you need to hire a pulp specialist, and certain pulp guys only know the westerns, certain ones only know spices or whatever it is. It's at we're not just hobby friendly, but we're a business as well. We have to make money. I don't see a time in our future at CBCS that we will be grading them. I think that our competition would have started grading them if it was feasible a long time ago.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the things that you guys are looking towards the future. My understanding is that magazines are something that you guys are keeping a close eye on.
Oh, absolutely. But we just spent all the money on, well, I shouldn't say all the money, but a lot of money on the new holder and the new label. And so then it took a lot of time to design. And we're starting to look at the magazine holder. And we're hoping, by the end of, next year to have it or before. But tooling costs are very, very expensive. I think the holder design with the labels and everything, I think we spent about $170,000 doing that. Now, to recoup $170,000 in magazines, which is not as big as comic books, collector-wise, would take a long, long time. But we want to have it because, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 1 through 3, you want that, right? People want that in the holder. So we are going to do it.
Yeah, if you could make one that was giant, so I could get trying to see if I have anything around here. I'm looking for things that are even bigger,
Well, I mean, people talk to me all the time about treasuries, right? It's not going to happen. Nobody wants to spend $100 or $200 to grade a treasury.
I just ship it.
And not just that, but the dealers don't want to drag around to conventions.
It'd be like those posters that you got at with Spencer's magazines. They'd just be in giant,
Yeah.
Let me ask you this: you're still doing magazines raw, right?
Yeah, we do magazines and treasuries raw.
Talk to me about that program. That's super cool.
It's really more to help comic book stores sell a book that they don't have to argue the grade with with the customer, right? When they have a raw magazine, they say it's 8.5 and the collector wants to buy it, thinks it's a 7.5. Well, if we've looked at it, they have a professional opinion and there's no debating at that point. It's a really cool kind of thing. It's also good for collectors who want to learn and don't want to spend as much money. So they send in, some books and they say raw grade, so they could, release it from the Mylar with the tamper evidence stickers and study the book and see why it got the grade it got.
If you had to do it all over again, if you had to learn how to grade from a kind of a novice beginner level to where you're at now, what are some of the things that you would do? I mean, I think that seems like just a fascinating idea. I remember when I wanted to get a 9.8 and a 9.6 and a 9.4 and a 9.2 of the same book, modern. in a slab so I could just kind of take a look at the covers and see what that really meant. That was like my first little idea I had when I got really into graded books. I picked up obviously the Overstreet price guide for grading. They're like grading guide.
Yeah, the grading guide.
It's like by my bedside now. I mean, I just love it as kind of a neat book. Really a cool, handy tool. What are some of the other things?
Cool, but once again, Bob Overstreet will tell you that it's just a guide. It helps you guide your way through it. You learn by, like I mentioned before, attaching yourself to people who have been in the hobby longer than you. Honest ones, dealers that you're buying from, if you're friendly with them, they want you to keep buying from them, so they're going to help you. If they're legitimate. But if I went back in time, once again, I was a kid and I used the Overstreet. I would have actually attached myself to people earlier. But when I was a kid, it wasn't cool to collect comic books. If I wore my Hulk t-shirt to school in 6th grade, I got beat up. If I wear a Hulk t-shirt today, people go, "That's cool," right? It was a different world. And once again, restoration wasn't even looked for back then. It was almost accepted.
Yeah, well, I mean, they advertised for it, right? In the back of Comic Buyer's Guide. I mean, come to us for your bucks.
Yeah, I really missed Comic Buyer's Guide. It was fantastic. Maggie and Don did a great job after Alan Light. Maggie's one of my best friends. She's so full of knowledge. It's incredible.
I'd love to meet her.
Oh, and she loves meeting everybody. She really is part of this hobby that's magical. She could talk to you about Pogo or Superman, right? I helped bring her collection to market. She read the books, she and Don, but they read them once and put them away carefully. When I was working for Heritage as their senior consignment director, I brought Maggie's collection to auction. She made a fortune. And what she did was, because she loved comic books so much, that she said, "Okay, I'm going to sell these high-grade books, but I still want a copy." So she sold, I'm making up numbers, right? Let's say she sold her FF #1 for $100,000. She could go out and buy a good copy for a lot less. So she's having a blast now rebuying the collection, but in low grade so she can read it, use it as reference material, and not worry about lowering the grade.
It's beautiful.
It is. It's fantastic. And she's, I can't talk enough good stuff about this woman. She cares more about the hobby than she does herself, I think.
Wow. I got a dear friend who is particularly grateful to CBCS for its commitment to foreign language comics. I think you guys really are at the forefront of encapsulating those books. You've got a dedicated staff member who's without a doubt.
Tim Bildhauser is one of the largest specialists in the world on foreign comic books. And before CBCS, books were being labeled if they were written in, say, Spanish. They were just being, okay, that's from Spain or that's from Mexico. They didn't really know where it was from. They didn't know it was from Brazil, right? We've made sure that we get it right. At least 99% of the time. We're human. Everybody makes a mistake. I don't care what job you have. If there's humans involved, there's mistakes.
I've made a lot.
Yeah, and in my life, I've made a lot of mistakes too. There's still one book out there that I wish I could take back from my early days with our competition. It's overgraded. it's a high value book, and it still bothers me to this day. But that's how much I care about the hobby.
Wow.
If I didn't care about the hobby, I wouldn't care about the book.
So we talked, you know, a little bit about foreign language books. I like to call them international comics.
Yes, that's
But is that what you call them? Okay.
Foreign comics. You know, I think international is a better word, though.
Yeah. Regardless, obviously there's very few books that cross your desk that you haven't seen, you know, a dozen, 2 dozen, 100 times. It's hard, you know, to really see something and be like, wow. When you see as many books as you do, are these international books books that, you know, continue to stun you? Or
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like if you look at, I'm pretty sure I'm saying this right because it's been a few years, but Action One from South Africa is really Action Comics 168. It's really cool because that's when it was printed, and they just they just used the book that was out there at the time and the cover. Some of the interiors are completely different than the cover. But there's guys who collect every version of a comic. There's right now on YouTube.
set builders.
Right now there's somebody who's showing off his Spider-Man 300s. I think there's like maybe 300 different copies. It's daunting to see. Very impressive, but.
Yeah, that's incidentally us. That's our YouTube show. We're the one.
Sorry.
Yeah. and we're glad you're interested. I find it to be fascinating.
Oh yeah, I linked it on our forums. I mean, I wanted to share it with everybody.
So help me with this. You're doing set building not just for international books, but that's now a new service that you guys are going to roll out at CBCS where people can kind of build sets.
Sure, that's right after the census was the next project was collector sets. Our competition calls it the registry, I think. I know, sorry. And it's a way of people showing off their collections. And some people really love the fact that they can compete with other collectors to have the better sets. So if they need a 9.8 on this one book just to beat somebody else out, they chase it. It's a really different type of collecting than I was used to as a young man, but I really see how fun it is. And it helps and it helps drive the market, which we want to keep this market healthy.
Yeah. So let's talk about the market. I know it's something that's important to both of us. I frankly am astonished at the strength of the comic market. Heritage auctions through the roof, eBay sales. I never in a million years thought that with an economy as up and down and all over the place as it has been, that we wouldn't at least see some instability in collectibles. Boy, I mean, I got to pick up my jaw off the ground when I think about just how strong collectors feel about comics and how much they're willing to invest in this hobby that we all love.
Sure. Well, it's a hobby of passion. But people have seen that most comic art and comic books are kind of recession proof. They go up, they go flat, they go up. They usually don't go down. The times when they go down is something like Westerns from the 50s, because those collectors are really no longer around. And the next generation couldn't care less about Gene Autry or Roy Rogers or anybody like that. So
my dad bought me Western comics. He doesn't know anything about comic books, but he knows that I like comic books. So he got on eBay and he bought me a couple Westerns, and I thought it was like the kindest, thing in the world, but you
Yeah.
know, he's like the last of that generation.
Right. I mean, if you look at the price guide throughout the years, the prices on the not the Atlas Westerns, those are, you know, Rawhide Kid, Ringo Kid, all that stuff is still very, very collectible because those characters are still around today or around in the 60s and 70s. And you know, we like to go back in time and collect the characters we love. But like I mentioned, like a Gene Autry, at one point, it was a very high priced book for the time, and now it's hard to sell them. If you look at Classics Illustrated, at one point, they were very, very, you know, heavily collected. But there's no, what's the word I'm looking for? Continuity with Classics comics, right? They do Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or they do Frankenstein, or, you know, Count of Monte Cristo, or whatever it was, and stuff that I used to cheat on exams when I had to read the book and didn't feel like it in 7th grade. But I shouldn't be mentioning that, should I? But
I know a good lawyer.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah, I know one too. He's right in front of me. Anyway, so the Classics Illustrateds, unless it's an incredible cover like Frankenstein or something like that, has not held up as well. We like to covet what we know, right? So let's say 10 years ago, some kid bought a Captain America comic book and he loved it, and he started buying Captain America comics. As soon as he, for lack of a better word, graduated to major collector, he could go back to 1940s and track Captain America all the way back to that. The continuity is incredible. And, you know, Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, of course, created Marvel and changed the industry by continuity. You know, Jim Shooter at DC, of course, with the Legion of Superheroes, had the same idea. And that's why the Legion of Superheroes has such a hardcore following.
Very cool. I want to bring in some of the rest of the Flipside cast of characters. We've got such an amazing group of guys that contribute day in and day out to CBSI, and specifically the Tales from the Flipside podcast. One is our resident foreign language comic guru. You, of course, met Deno, who is part of the Anonymous Hacker Collective, and our maestro in chief. And I think we're going to have a couple other people, hopefully Ben C., our El Presidente founder in chief, Peter Renna, the most likable man in comics.
Hey, Peter.
Hello.
See, he's never met him, and he immediately is like, "Hi, Peter. I'm telling you, the most likable man in comics."
I tried.
And I'm going to shut up and let these guys talk. I'm sure they've got
And
a thousand awesome questions.
John Z is on here as well. Hi, John.
Yeah,
Hey.
John is our resident foreign language comic expert, who he and Matt Roybal put together the
Matt Roybal,
ASM,
such a great guy.
the ASM 300 videos that you loved.
Oh, that's great. John, I thought the world of it. Like I said, I put it on our chat boards.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. It was great to see it there. We're just trying to get the hobby to see something different. And
sure. And what a labor of love. I mean, it's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Really, a lot of kudos to you.
Well, thank you. It's just, you know, a lot of research, a lot of people helping. It's not a two-guy show. It's a whole team of people kind of combining their resources to help, because there's so much out there.
And we've talked to Tim. We talked to Tim at CBCS at Indianapolis Comic Con many of times. Myself and John have. So he's
been on the podcast on the flip side.
Yeah, and Tim is an and he's brilliant. And he's a great guy. Loves the hobby. I'm happy, to call him my friend. Once again, it goes back to this hobby. It's not just about collecting comic books. The friendships you make. Collecting by yourself is cool, but collecting with other people and talking is fantastic. Back in the 90s, we used to get together for dinner, and everybody would bring their books that they bought, and there was major comic dealers and major collectors and some non-major collectors, some non-major comic dealers, and at the end of the dinner, we'd have them take the tablecloth off the table, replace it, get the drinks off the table and the food, and we'd break out our books and pass them around and have a great time showing off what we got, and the dealers were showing off, of course, what they got so they could sell them to us, of course. But it was just getting together with a group of people who love the same thing you do, even if they collect something a little different, that they collect comics, is fantastic.
All right, our fearless leaders down there on the left.
Hi, Ben.
What's going on, brother? How are you?
Good. How you been?
Good, good.
Good. I know you said you had a question for me tonight.
Yeah, well, I was going to try to not make it about a bunch of dead shows, but
Hey, I'm all happy to talk about the Grateful Dead.
yeah, these guys will not be happy with me.
After I get off this show, I'm going to be going to the streaming of the J-Rad shows. That's tonight.
Oh, God.
You want to hear something funny? Tonight's actually my 12th wedding anniversary. We got married on a Friday because of May 2nd, 1970, the Harper College show.
You're as hardcore as I am, man.
Oh, it's ridiculous. But on the comic, on the topic of comics, you guys mentioned earlier the stability of the market.
Yes.
With the price swell, I don't know, over the past 5-6 years, I'd say.
Sure.
We've seen bronze and copper and gold. Everything's exploded.
Well, because eventually moderns become vintage.
Sure. Yeah, that's another conversation about age. Right?
Sure.
Do you see a price correction coming? And if so, what do you think will be affected?
I mentioned this before, that in our hobby, the only slowdown we ever saw financially was the mid-90s, and that was before certifications. One of my friends said certification was the shot in the arm the hobby needed. But normally, it seems that books go up, they then go flat for a while, and then go back up. Unless, of course, it's something that nobody cares about, whether it's something that's very old, like the Yellow Kid, where that generation is no longer collecting.
Yeah.
And Westerns, like I mentioned before.
So have we seen a market explode in this? So in like 2000, I want to say 13, I kept passing on 4.0 AF-15s going 10 grand. And the price gain in such a short time feels, and again, I've only been in since 2011, so.
Well, there's been some mild corrections in it, but not crazy. 20% here or there.
Right, and people put money when the stock market's down. We see people putting more money into collectibles. They've been fairly safe. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you have a real depression in this country, that's going to hurt it. But right now, where the country is at its highest unemployment since the Great Depression, we're still seeing record prices on eBay, Heritage, Comic Link, I believe that people want to put their money into something they love and know that they can get out for what they paid, even if they can't make extra money. But once again, it goes back to we covet what we love. And my war cry has always been collect what you love and can afford, and you're going to be happy at the end of the day.
Yep.
If you overspend trying to get out of a big book, which happened to me when my daughter was born and I quit my job, I had to sell my Action 1 for about $20,000 less than I could have got if I waited. But my family was more important, and our families are more important than comics. I'm sorry to say, as much as I love them, I love my family more, and I love my friends more.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I know we had you on because we wanted to talk about this population report, and I've been playing around with it a little bit. I mean, I haven't dug in and done tons and tons of research, but just seeing the data and how much is there, it's impressive. It's a useful tool for everyone. I was looking at ASM 300 because that's kind of the standard that everybody knows. That's one of the higher graded books, and you guys have about 1,700 graded in this short time, which is quite a few.
Yeah, and not just in a short amount of time, but if you think about our history of CBCS, we've been open 5 years, and we had 5 major catastrophes hit us in 5 years every year. Somehow, I guess we've survived, but the first year we had the plastic situation where they sent us the wrong plastic, and I wasn't going to put books in plastic that were going to hurt the books. Then we had a hurricane the next year, which shut us down for a little bit. Then the next year we had a hurricane that lasted even longer. Then we had the move from Florida to Texas. And now we have the, COVID, right? We've been very lucky that we have so many loyal clients that we're still getting books in. We run specials a lot. Actually, we'll announce one tonight for your viewers that we're going to announce soon for the rest of the community. But we'd like to give it to your viewers first since you're here.
And we appreciate it.
No problem. It's good for everybody. It's called Support the Hobby because people don't have all the money they need right now. So to help them get their book certified, we're taking a percentage off and doing a faster turnaround time so they can actually sell the books to raise money.
Yeah, and that's the brilliance of it. And then they can keep the cycle going, keeping the hobby fed.
Right.
Yeah,
and it's going to hurt us a little bit, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to help us because the community will look at us as if we are supporting the hobby.
I really hope so. I'm confident, I'm confident people will recognize, the good where it is.
Yeah, well, Ben, as you know, I'm a deadhead, so I have that ingrained in me. Treat each other very well, and just be kind to each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
Steve, I want to go through the pictures you sent us too. I know Nico got off the air, but I want to talk about the pictures you sent us at least, just so everybody can see what you kind of sent us over.
I didn't do a lot of research. I was working all day today, so I kind of just picked random books to send over.
So, this is he sent me some photos, or sent us some photos, I guess. So this is Marvel Mystery Comics 12. That's an 8.5.
Sure, which is an incredible grade for that book.
Yeah, for a 1940s book. I mean,
it's a gorgeous book.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look at the colors alone.
Yeah. The colors.
So he sent us a bunch of these. So I'm just going to go through these really quickly. Nothing.
Sure.
This is signed Rob Liefeld 98 D Mutants 87.
Right. That's our witness program. So that's why it's a yellow label.
Yep.
Which is a nice program. People find it very easy at shows, I know.
Yes.
Next, we have a Planet Comics number 3 from Fiction House. That's a 7.0. That's
right, but it has the check mark next to it.
Yep.
Which is
if you think about 7.0 and you look at this photo, you're going to think we graded that too tough. So that's why the check mark is next to it, to check the grader's notes to see why it graded the way it did, because we don't want somebody saying, that's a 7.0, but it really should be like an 8.5. So I'm going to crack it out and resubmit it. And we don't want them wasting their money. Once again, it goes back to I like making money, but I don't like taking money.
Well, that's not a bad reputation that you guys kind of started out with, is being a little more consistent. I don't want to say tough is the word, but consistent on, what was gonna grade where. So people feel very good about your brand there.
Right. I could have put that in an 8.5 holder and it would have passed the muster when people are looking at it, but there's probably something wrong with the inside, or maybe there's heavy tanning on the interior covers, or like I said, a tear on page 3, whatever it is. Maybe there's a small spine split, but you can't see it because it's encapsulated.
I'm going to go on to this next one. I don't think they're in any kind of real order, but this is a Wonder Woman 1590.
Yeah, it's an Eldon copy. Eldon wrote his name on every book. It's kind of cool. It's not cool if you don't like writing on your books, but for somebody like me who loves the hobby, I'm like, oh, I've got a piece from the Eldon collection. That's kind of cool. It was some kid who just loved his books, wanted to write his name on it. My mother actually told me that she was reading a lot of 4-color stuff when she was a kid, and she wrote her name on every book. I've been waiting to find one, which is probably impossible, needle in the haystack, but I can't wait to see something that says Linda Borock on it.
That's fine.
Well, now all of us will be looking for you.
I was going to say,
thank
put
you.
the call out.
Yeah, right. But people, put their names on books because back then everybody bought the same comic book, took them to school, and you didn't want them stolen.
That's funny. And then there's the Larson pedigree is famous for
Larson's name. Sure.
Right, that very neat.
Absolutely. And I got to meet Larson.
Really?
Yeah, we found out where he was through John Burke, who was a major collector. We actually had a dinner hosting him and his family and collectors and dealers in San Diego. And he was this older man, and he couldn't believe that people wanted to meet him because of his comics that he had when he was a kid. It was a most amazing moment as a collector, hobbyist, for me. And everybody had such a great time, but really the Larsons were just in awe of what was going on.
That's fantastic.
Next we have this is Amazing Spider-Man number 6. That's a CBCS 9.6. It's a really good looking copy. I mean, you can't get much better than that. Obviously 9.8, but I mean,
it's hard
because
those books were read to death. It's the first Lizard, of course. Spider-Man is king of comics at this point.
Yeah.
Everybody's collecting Spider-Man. I sent it over because I just thought people would want to see it. But yeah, I mean, when something like that hits my desk, I'm blown away. I mean, I've been doing this for so long, and it's just such a nice feeling to be blown away and still enjoy this. A lot of graders get burnt out and couldn't care less about what they're grading. They just want to get it on their desk, get it off their desk. I really dig seeing stuff. If you see my posts on Instagram that I also connect to Facebook, I try to do one a day at least, saying this hit my grading desk, and it's not even encapsulated. I'm not even trying to do CBCS promotion as much. It's, it hit my grading desk. I go, oh, I have to take a picture of this. I have to share it with the world. And so I have a lot of followers on Instagram and on Facebook, just because they want to see my my pick every day.
Yeah, whatever blows you away blows us away times 10.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say, it's always gorgeous, sharp copies of
like this book, maybe like it's a Fantastic Four #1 and a 9.4. No big deal.
And that's our verified signature program. On the first page, Jack Kirby signed his name.
Yeah. Oh my. Somebody was very happy.
Yeah, that's
Oh yeah,
a true thing of beauty.
that's sold. I think it's sold through Comic Link.
Oh god.
Oh,
I don't even want to look at that kind of number.
Love Comic Link.
And then one of our last ones is his art and signature series from Serenko.
Yeah, which is really cool. So what we did with the art program, which is something that our competition doesn't do, people have sketch covers, especially, right? You know, there's all these blank covers. They get somebody to do it, but while they're doing it, they're ruining the grade of the book, right? They're putting creases in or spine stresses in, and it shouldn't matter the grade when you're looking at something that Steranko did on the cover, right? Or anybody else that you love. So you have an option to pick art only. Because, I mean, I really don't care if I have a 9.8 or a 7.0 of a book.
Already, so who cares what the grade is?
Right. So, but people are grade crazy. So if you make the art label, it doesn't matter the grade. And then it's also great for people who, you know, take a backing board and get them to sketch on it, like this one. And it's just his art, but it's preserved in the holder. It's not going to get ruined. It's archivally safe.
And it displays very nice.
And it does display very nice, yes.
Cool. That's the last one. That's the last photo I have, but I just wanted to show that off because that was such a great, great.
I was looking through the census and just wanted to show something that I really enjoyed. And if people haven't looked at it, so you can, or the population report. Sorry, I'm using the wrong term. But if people, you know, want to pull up a book, you know, I did New Mutants '98, just checking the big ones.
Sure.
And how you did this, you know, there are definitely some that were before you separated the direct and newsstand, but you put everything together. So like the reprints are together, the price variants are together. So if you type in New Mutants '98, you don't have to then go and find which year are you looking for, which variation, and then go into that individual census. You're displaying the entire census of everything kind of in that general description right there.
And I like how they're chronologically in order as well.
Yeah, so to me, that's kind of a nice little feature, because there's times I go through and I'm looking for a book and I've got to click on this one and then I've got to go find the other, especially as a foreign or somebody that's doing some of the lots of different covers or different variations, to not have to search everywhere to find all that data and find it all on one page is fantastic.
Well, I'm glad you guys are happy, because, you know, I got nervous when we were launching, of course, because there's going to be some tweaks that have to be done. But we have a button that says report a problem, as I mentioned before, I think. And this way the community can help us, if they care about the community and the hobby, that they can help us make this as correct as possible.
And I, from what I've looked at, I mean, I've played it a little bit, and it's a pretty clean service. You know, you got to type the right information in. You know, if you don't, one that caught me is if I don't put the dash in Spider-Man, it doesn't come up right. Okay,
absolutely.
You can learn that, because that's how it is, and that's fine. You can learn that piece. I did enjoy looking in the census and finding that I have one of ones, so those are always fun.
Nice.
Congratulations. Joys of the foreign world. But it's really laid out very well. So thank you and congratulations. It looks, I know everybody gave you pressure for the last close to since you opened the door for a census, and I think you guys did a really good job on getting out there.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't have been fair to open a census right away, because it just, there wasn't enough books.
It was good to hear that. It was good to hear that, and good for, you know, folks to hear that, so they're not, you know, there's no question, there's no wondering anymore.
Oh, and there's close to 2,500 New Mutants '98, so there's definitely data in here. You know, you can look at any book and find at least some useful information.
Sure, but you might not see a Jimmy Olsen number 17. You know, well, I mean,
but there might not be many of those between.
Well,
either
now
company.
Someone's going to slab it.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially when when the collector sets start, I think that's going to be a huge thing for the community and for the CBCS collectors. Um, I had a vision of letting people put CBCS and our competitions books in their sets. I think that got shot down. I don't think it's going to happen. I really thought that it doesn't matter what service you use, you have that book.
It may create people just coming over to take over the system because they already have them.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think the collector sets are going to move the needle as well. But you need the census to have that.
Oh, I agree, and it looks very, very nice, very clean. I've enjoyed everything I've played with so far.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear because I've been working on some proposals for more programs the last 48 hours. Actually, when I was, talking with you earlier about the podcast beforehand, I was working nonstop, and I'm actually going back to work early tomorrow morning. We have a lot of stuff in the works that's going to be, I think, very good for the hobby. One of the things we have that our competition doesn't have is that we do pre-screens, grade screens, but you could pick single books. You don't have to send in 30 books and say, I want them all in 9.6 or better. You could pick this one 7.5, this one 9.8, this one 4.0. It gives people something to test their grading skills as well.
Yeah, and people like options. It's a lot more attractive for me to know that I might not need a 9.8, but I need to break that 9.2 range.
Exactly.
Where other books, I need that 9.8, or I just, or 9.6, or,
I just found something else I really enjoy as I was playing with different books. I'm showing it on the screen right now. You break down what the conserved or resto or issue is, and it's an odd book I stumbled upon. I'm passionate about the Crow and just was curious what's in the census.
Sure.
But just the competition just says there's a issue. You are actually telling us what that issue is, so that's kind of cool to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're trying to give as much information as possible, and this is a living thing, basically. It's going to change as we can figure out more of what the community wants.
Well, you have me as a fan, and I am happy that this website is very easy to navigate. It's very easy to use. It's one of the more user-friendly options out there as far as comic research. So I like it. I'm very happy.
And Steve, improvements. Are you going to take suggestions on like the forums or something? Like make a thread on the forums, or how are you going to go about?
Well, actually, what's funny is the forums actually send start threads for suggestions. I don't have to solicit them.
Okay.
That's one of the nice things about having a forum is I get to listen to the community. And I'm very, very involved in the forums. I can't do it all day long, of course, but the first thing I do in the morning is I get on the forums and I see if there's any questions that need to be answered by somebody like me as opposed to customer service. And I play around. I have such a great time showing off, the book of the day, or there's one. I'm having a lot of fun with one of the threads on the forum right now. It says calendar year, show off your books, and so today is like 112, and so you pick a copy of a book that's number 112, and you post it. And it's just a lot of fun seeing all this stuff. We want to make the forums fun. it shouldn't just be about, people complaining and people asking for stuff. It should be about the community and enjoying getting to know each other, even though one person's in Italy and one person's in Long Island, New York, right? People have made great friendships through that, and I have as well. Same thing with Instagram. Like I try to post every day. Ben has become friends through Instagram.
Absolutely.
Which is fantastic. We both love each other's posts most of the time. I'm sure there's something I post you don't care about, but whatever.
Oh no, brother, that's just me being a little elevated.
You thought he was older, though. That's probably true.
Not that much older. But that's cool, man. And like I said, with Ben, we find something besides comics that we can relate to, and it makes the friendship stronger.
I've noticed, I've seen some people that join the show, the live chat, just from your forums that I recognize from there that are here that, wouldn't necessarily watch this YouTube channel, but they're very loyal. They're very more welcoming group than most places from every experience I have had. So I do want to applaud you on that you've made the forums are a dangerous place in most of the world. And
we monitor them very closely.
I've not heard much in the way of problems occurring there. I mean, I'm sure there's things that spring up, but the community there seems to be very happy, and any interaction I've had there has been really positive. So that's awesome to have somewhere where people can just appreciate what they love.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing about comics. At the end of the day, we all love comics. It's something we can agree on. And if we build our hobby to a friendly place, more people will come in. There's no reason for somebody who's been around the block a long time to say you don't know what you're talking about. They can be more friendly. They can say, you're wrong about this, but here's why. And I'm glad you're collecting that.
I think there's a lot to be said for having someone, so respected in the community to be so hands-on. It's what separates, it's what separates CBCS from other companies.
Yeah, we always wanted to be hobby friendly. I never want to be out of this hobby. Even if I retire, I want to be part of the hobby. Like I said, the friendships I've made, I'm blown away. I got a call yesterday. Somebody wanted to check in to see how I was doing during this time. He's a very big collector, Action One, the whole bit. And it's just nice to hear from him. And he wasn't calling about comics. He was calling just to see how I was doing.
Isn't that nice?
I mean, that's how we all met on this channel, this group. Our page was all guys just talking about comics, and we just got talking on other things. And I've known a lot of these guys 8 to 10 years. Just they're some of the better people I know. And getting through isolation, it is awesome to have friends online that you want to talk to.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what's nice is was it FaceTimes, things like that. I get on the phone with like 4 of my friends, and we're all talking. We're having a blast during this quarantine, and it helps us get through it. And what is the line? Love will see you through, right?
Yeah. Got a boy.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, I'm going to say you have sold me. Like, I will admit, like,
I wasn't trying to sell anything.
No, I know. What I'm saying is, like, I haven't been grading books for that long. Like, I've been collecting comics for most of my life and just collecting them to read. And I just love comics. But getting more into this grading hobby part of it, maybe the last couple of years, and I kind of lean more towards the competition because my OCD likes things to match.
Yes.
But now, in just from everything that you've been saying, from the Hero Initiative to how you treat your books to your openness and just the clarity, the free grade, like everything about CBCS it's opening my eyes to the other option that now I'm at least considering. Like, well, if it's going to be for PC at least, I'm going to look this way because I like what you guys are doing over there.
Great. Well, reach out to me if you ever need anything.
Absolutely.
I'm always available.
And I added you to my follow list on Instagram while we were talking.
You should, man.
What's on your desk?
It'll bring you to tears some days, and some days will be joy. All things are great to see when you post them.
I was going to say, but it's all good in the end.
Just when you said, like, you just want to show the book because it caught your eye, you just want to share it. Like, that's the stuff I love too.
Yeah. And I wish I had more time in the day to do it.
I look for the day when I send something in and you go, this was the book I want to post.
Oh, everybody, not everybody, but, there's so many people that ask me, can you post my book? And I say, I don't know it's your book, first of all. Grading is done blind because it has to be impartial. And second of all, like I said, I don't have a lot of time. So I just, some book hits my desk and I say, this is cool to me. I think it'll be cool to everybody else. So let me show it off.
I want it to be something that wows you naturally. And you go, yeah, wow, I don't know where I've seen that. Or it is just, what is it?
I'm just going to write Ben across a Snoopy book, send it in.
Actually, Ben's gonna get a bunch of 4-color and send them in with your mother's name signed across to get your hopes up.
Yeah.
Well, Ben, once we get the magazine holder, you can send in your Grateful Dead comics.
I almost thought of that, and I was like, how am I going to read them? I'll have to send you one of the sets.
Yeah, when Jerry Wiest passed away, while he was sick, I'm sorry. He sent me 5 copies of Grateful Dead Comics #1.
Oh, that's fantastic.
In like mint condition. And what I did was I kept one because it was Jerry's, and I gave 4 out to friends that never had them.
Good for you. And that's exactly what they're for on every level, from Dead to the comics. Like,
Ben, right. You haven't even brought up your CBCS book you missed out on.
Oh, Steve knows.
The rest of the audience doesn't.
Steve, you can explain it better than me. The Jerry Garcia copies of EC books.
Right, they were sold through Bonhams, which was really stupid. It should have went to Heritage or Comic Link, and I would say Heritage at that point for this kind of collection, because they have a rock and roll memorabilia part of their site, right? And I actually tried to get that collection from Jerry's wife after he passed, but she wanted so much money. She thought it was, she looked at the price guide and looked at near mint prices where they were all like, 3.0s, some of them were brittle. Jerry read them to death.
Yeah, and that's the most beautiful part of it, is that they were read and the history behind them. Oh.
You're just putting a box. The Crime Suspense 22 was a 2.5.
Right.
There was spent some time with that book.
And what's crazy is that they forgot to mention that there was 2 of those books in that lot. So my friend, who's been a great hobbyist forever, worked with Christie's and stuff, was able to get that set because he found out there was 2. And we put From the Personal Collection of Jerry Garcia on the label. I actually was able to buy 3 of the books. They're really low grade. They're worthless. It's like MD number 5 in like 3. I mean, I don't mean worthless. To me, they're priceless.
And that's the thing. I threw on the other one. It was Crime. It was 22 and then another one, the bottle cover. And it went for a few hundred. And I'm fine with a few hundred, but I need it to be a horror book. It ties better.
Yeah. With Jerry, he enjoyed it all. But Ben, I have 3 books. I don't need 3. You've been a kind of a new friend that's really cool. Send me an email. Let me see if I can get you one.
Oh, no, brother.
Oh no!
You just melted my mind. I got some dead shirts and CBSI stuff for you.
All right. Well,
All
we'll do a trade instead of a sale.
I
How's that?
truly appreciate. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, obviously, I'll cover the difference on the dead shirts.
Well, and I appreciate Steve spending so much time with us. I know that you're up against the clock a little bit, so I don't want to take too much of it.
I've got a live stream Joe Russo's Almost Dead show coming up, and I'm going to be on the phone with my friends from New York, and we're going to be listening and laughing and loving and just digging the music. And it's been a long, long day for me.
Well, I would like you to enjoy the end of it, man.
Exactly, but I've enjoyed this so much. I mean, anytime y'all want me back, I really, very comfortable here.
We're glad. We're very glad. I'm still nerding out, man. I'm sorry.
I'm nerding out too, man. That's what's fun about it, right? It's great. The more we can educate the community, the better we're gonna be. So let's do it.
Absolutely.
No,
I want to add one thing personally, because my buddy Anthony L said it too, is every once in a while you'll comment on one of our books and it makes our freaking week. Like when we post a book and you go, awesome. Us general collectors are like, sweet.
Really?
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, my buddy Anthony L said you did a Sensation 38 for him not too long ago. And he's like, oh, that's awesome. And I know I've got 2 or 3, and I'm like, that makes my freaking life on those. It's like Steve saw it and said, sweet. So
well, yeah, that's me being a hobbyist. It's not me being a CBCS employee.
No, and I love it. I love it. So we thank you for spending, an hour and change with us. We thank you for letting us talk about the census and talk the dead and all the fun things you let us talk about. We would love to have you again.
And once again, Ben, if there's some time, I can show you all my Tim Truman Grateful Dead Almanac art.
We'll have to say that for another show.
Ben's gonna cry.
Well, no, just email me, Ben, and I'll send some photos.
I will. That'd be incredible, brother.
If you look at the Standing on the Moon on the Grateful Dead site, Tim drew my daughter into it.
Oh no!
And I just got the last one he said he's ever going to do, St. Stephen, because it's me, of course. Wherever he goes, the people all complain, right? He said he's not. He did it because Hunter loved his art, and now that Hunter's gone, he's probably not going to do anymore. And the last one, St. Stephen, says for Robert Hunter.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, and I was able to get that one. Thank God.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah. Well, guys, listen, once again, thank you so much for everything. The promo code.
Oh, yes.
You did a special promo for us.
Right? I mean, why don't we save your people some money?
Absolutely.
Right? So what you do is you go online, you fill out the submission form. You print out the submission form that you're going to send. It's going to show full prices. But you write support the hobby. And you'll get, I think, 20% off your grading and a quick turnaround time. But once again, support the hobby. Very important that you write it on there. And then we'll adjust the money that we'll be charging you.
That's fantastic.
That's outstanding, Steve. So thank you for sharing with our viewers and listeners and everyone here. So
yeah, awesome. I think it only goes for a month, so you have to have it postmarked before the end of the month.
Everybody on here, get your books packed up. Come on, you got some time tonight. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
you got the lead.
Well, good luck tonight.
Yeah, I don't need good luck tonight. I just need good luck in the morning getting up to work. I've been working 7 days a week for a while now. Because we had to go to a skeleton crew during this crazy time, but it's worth it. It's I love what I do, and
It definitely shows.
well, I'm glad. You still have that 2% of the population of collectors that yell at me.
No, they're terrible. I met you once, and you weren't even you hadn't even opened the CBCS at the time. You were at IndieCon, and you were fantastic to everyone.
Oh, IndieCon was fantastic. That was fun.
We're at like 30% of people that yell at us. So.
Yeah, so you're doing pretty good at only 2.
Yeah, but I don't handle customer service, so.
Well, those people are angels, so.
Yeah, they are. I mean, they take a lot of crap from people. Oh, excuse me. I took some ginger ale and oh man, it went down the wrong pipe. I'm so sorry. That's embarrassing. But like I said, you guys be good to each other, and anything you want, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy. You guys are great. I can't say enough about y'all.
We appreciate you coming on and taking this time.
Thanks.
Enjoy your show, Steve. We thank you for sharing ours.
Thank you so much, guys. And if there's anything you need, like I said, please reach out. Oh, you know what? Let me give people our website. It's cbcscomics.com. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's just Steve Borock. That's Borock. And if you want to join our forums, like I said, you just go to our website and click on forums and come on board and have some fun.
And anyone looking for that info, it'll all be on the site tomorrow, including posting this video.
Wonderful.
Thank you, guys. You guys have been awesome, Steve. Thank you.
All right. Well, peace and love, and have a great night.
Thanks, brother.
Thank you.